So, when you think about the Gospels, you probably picture four books that basically tell the same story, right? But what if one of them was written with a completely different, you could even say radical, purpose in mind? Today, we're diving deep into the Gospel of Luke to uncover its unique and honestly revolutionary message. It's a super common assumption, isn't it? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, four versions of the Jesus story. But thinking they're just carbon copies is one of the biggest misconceptions out there. The truth is, they each have their own distinct voice, a unique audience they're talking to, and a very specific angle. And then there's Luke. Luke is different. He's maybe the most distinct of them all. He's not just retelling a story. He's acting like a careful historian, crafting this incredible narrative for a very specific group of people who are on the outside looking in. So how do you do it? Well, let's break it down. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start by looking at how Luke specifically wrote his gospel for outsiders. Then, we'll see how that idea explodes into his main theme, a radical welcome for people on the margins. We'll also see why he gives a special place to women. After that, we'll unpack his famous lost parables, and finally, we'll pull it all together to really grasp Luke's amazing universal vision. All right, first things first. Who was Luke writing for? All the evidence points to the Gentiles, the non-Jewish world. And Luke, being a bit of a historian, knew that for his message to really hit home, he had to speak their language and connect with their world. And one of the most brilliant, kind of subtle ways he does this is in the genealogy. Just think about it for a second. Matthew, who's writing for a Jewish audience, traces Jesus' family tree back to Abraham, right? The father of the Jewish people. Makes sense. But Luke, he goes all the way back to Adam, the father of the entire human race. The message is crystal clear right from the get-go. This isn't just a savior for one nation, he's for everybody. And this focus on outsiders isn't a one-off thing. It's woven into every little detail. For instance, Luke dates events using Roman rulers his audience would know. He swaps out Hebrew terms like rabbi for their Greek equivalents, like master, so people wouldn't get lost. He almost never quotes Jewish prophecy because, why would he? It wouldn't mean much to a Roman or Greek reader. He's literally removing every possible barrier to understanding the story. But this whole gospel for outsiders thing isn't just about language and history. Nope, it's the absolute heart of his message. And that brings us to Luke's central theme, this idea of a radical welcome for those who society had pushed to the very edges. This is basically Jesus' mission statement. It's from his very first public sermon in his hometown of all places, and the focus is just unmistakable. The poor, the prisoners, the blind, the oppressed. He is deliberately kicking off his mission by identifying with the liberation of people at the absolute bottom of society's ladder. And Luke just keeps hammering this point home. He consistently, and I mean deliberately, puts the spotlight on these groups. The poor are always central. The Samaritans, who are the hated rivals of the Jews, are often the heroes of the story. Tax collectors, seen as traitors working for the enemy, are shown grace. And of course, the Gentiles themselves. Even at the very, very end, Luke is the only one who tells us about the repentant thief on the cross, an outcast who is saved in his final moments. Okay, check this out, because this comparison is so telling. In Matthew's famous Sermon on the Mount, the blessing is for the poor in spirit, which is a spiritual condition. But in Luke's version, Jesus looks right at the crowd and says, "Blessed are you who are poor." He's talking directly about their actual material poverty, their social reality. For Luke, the spiritual isn't disconnected from the physical. His gospel is deeply, deeply concerned with real-world justice. And this radical welcome doesn't stop there. It extends to another group that was so often pushed to the margins: women. In a first-century world that pretty much treated them as second-class citizens, Luke gives women a prominent and honored place in his story. To really get how revolutionary this was, you have to understand the context. This was a common prayer for men back then. It literally groups women with slaves and non-Jews as being on a lower tier. So, against that backdrop, what Luke is doing isn't just being inclusive, it's a direct, powerful challenge to the cultural norms of his day. And you see this pattern again and again. It's completely intentional. The entire Christmas story, it's told through Mary's eyes. We get these rich, detailed accounts of figures like Elizabeth and Anna. We see the incredible compassion Jesus shows for the grieving widow of Nain. Luke's the only one who tells that famous story of Mary and Martha. And he makes sure to highlight the profound faith of women like Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Susanna, even naming them as key financial supporters of the ministry. He consistently puts women right at the forefront of the action. So where does this theme of welcoming the outcast really shine the brightest? Well, it finds its most powerful voice in Luke's most famous and unique stories, the parables of the lost. And these aren't just cute stories about things going missing.
They reveal the very character of God, a God who actively, relentlessly goes out and seeks the lost.
Now Luke does something really clever here. He lines up these three parables in this amazing escalating sequence. First, a shepherd loses 1 sheep out of 100, okay? Then the stakes get higher. A woman loses 1 precious coin out of just 10. And finally, a father loses 1 son out of only 2. With each story, the value of what's lost becomes more and more intense, driving home just how much God values every single person.
Yeah, we all know this one as the prodigal son, right? We always focus on the wild younger brother who wastes all his money, but that's only half the story. See, the parable is just as much about the older brother. Jesus is telling the story to a crowd of religious leaders, and he's basically holding up a mirror to them. And this is the absolute genius of the parable. See, there are 2 different ways to be lost. You can be lost out in a far country in open rebellion, like the younger son, or you could be lost right there at home, completely consumed by resentment and self-righteousness, just like the elder son. The point is, both of them need the Father's grace, and the Father runs to welcome both of them home.
All right, so let's pull all these threads together. We've got a gospel for outsiders, this idea of a radical welcome, an elevated place for the marginalized, and a God who relentlessly seeks the lost. It all builds up and culminates in Luke's grand universal vision.
If you had to pick one story, just one, to sum up the entire Gospel of Luke, it's got to be this guy, Zacchaeus. He is everything the good people of his day despised. He was a chief tax collector, a traitor who got rich by working with the Roman oppressors. He is the ultimate outcast.
So when Jesus spots Zacchaeus in a tree and invites himself over to his house, it's a total scandal. But that simple act of welcome completely flips a switch in him. And his response isn't just some empty promise, it is immediate, radical action. He pledges to give 50% of everything he owns to the poor, and to pay back anyone he cheated 4 times over. This is what Luke's radical welcome looks like in real life. And it's right here, in this moment, after seeing Zacchaeus' transformation, that Jesus basically drops the mic. He gives us the thesis statement for the entire book, the one sentence that sums up everything Luke has been building towards. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. That's the mission. That's the whole point. So ultimately, when you step back and look at the whole picture, Luke presents a gospel where every single barrier we love to build, nationality, social status, gender, our past mistakes, they're all torn down. The welcome mat is out for everyone, and it's especially for those who feel like they'd never, ever be invited to the party. Look, this isn't just some dusty old story. It's a completely radical vision for the world. A vision where the outsider is the guest of honor, where mercy always wins over judgment, and where no one is beyond the reach of a seeking love. So the question Luke kind of leaves hanging in the air for us is simple, but it's profound. If God sees no barriers, why do we?